women respond really well to the right environment. If the environmental inputs are correct, then women can change drastically. They have this ability actually far more than men. Women are way more adaptable to their environment. This leads to positive and negative outcomes, of course. So all right, welcome to the Bacon, Bibles, and Barbells podcast. I'm Coach Justin and joined by Coach Emily, Coach Amanda, and Coach Bill. We're all actually here today. Doesn't always happen, so glad that we could be today. Today we're talking about women's hormones. We're calling it hormone harmony, breaking through the social media static. So there's a lot of junk out there about women's hormones, a lot of fixations on it. Honestly, most of what I see is complete nonsense and garbage. And it's leading women to believing very detrimental and harmful things, like misinformation that they live with for years that's holding them back. So we're going to talk further about that. But before that, we'll talk about our training and how things are going there. I'll go first. It'll be really quick. I'm still weak from my pinched nerve on my upper body. I'm getting into squatting again and some of the other stuff lightly, still kind of shaking August mostly off. But I did notice that I got stronger between last week and this week. And my arm actually got a little bit bigger. So I'm hoping that it's not like actual muscle protein atrophy, but it's some of it's just water loss. My left delt is still like it looks like the fraction the size of my right delt. And it's very weak. It's like the left delt is probably the weakest of all. My back actually is rebounding a lot faster, as is my left arm. It's just the left delt is, it's just super wimpy, still. And it looks a lot smaller. So that's kind of where that is. I'm eating maintenance or so, and just kind of training through it. I'm hoping this doesn't last for forever, and I'm waiting for peptides to show up in the mail, and it's taking forever too. So that's what I got. I'll go in order of across the screen. Bill, how's everything going?
Good. I just recently switched into the next block for my training that'll go through the fall and winter. It'll be X-frame focused, of course. So lots of lat work, lots of shoulder delt work. I mean, I already was doing a lot of delt work, a lot of quad sweep work. I had a little nagging pinch in my knee when I was doing my extensions. They're getting pretty heavy. They're in like the mid 200s for sets of like 8 or 9. It's just a lot of shear on the knee. So I subbed those out for sissy squats with dumbbells and also cyclist squats. And I mean, I don't know. I loaded up like 220 for the cyclist squats the other day, and it was just awful. That doesn't sound like much, but listen, like when you're doing those things and they're high rep, between 10 and 15 reps, it is brutal.
I've had the biggest squat here, and 225 on cyclist squats at bodybuilding reps, at higher reps it'll light your quads up pretty bad.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, the pump is great. That feels good. So all that's great. I'm taking a little bit of a break on hamstrings and glutes, obviously. You have to focus properly on the quads. So what I'm doing instead is I'm on my cardio days, I'm doing weighted mobility and flexibility work. I put a video up the other day, but I'll put some more up about some of the stuff I do there to just stay flexible. But other than that, it's fine. I'm not really eating enough to super grow or anything right now. Still shedding a little body fat. I'm in a little bit of the end of what I call the skinny fat phase of the cut, where you just sort of have that little bit to lose. You look flat, It's real hard to get pumped up. When people see the pictures on social media, I'm full of carbs and salt and caffeine and water. And so it takes all that just to get a decent pump right now. So just coming to the end of that, be in a couple weeks, and then I'll start back on the bulk, and hopefully we'll see some good results by the end of the year.
Nice. Yeah. Amanda, what about you?
Yeah, I'm at the beginning part of a cut where we always talk about the end of a cut, like toward prep, how the mental game is really part of it. But like, I'm having a little bit of the like beginning mental game where you're adding cardio, pulling back calories, and you're like, all right, when's it going to show? Like, I need a little bit of a win here. Like,
My muscles are
that.
flat and I'm still fat.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been very long, so I know just, keep doing the thing. It'll come. But it's like that very beginning before that momentum really builds up that I'm like ready for some, the waste to start coming in and stuff like that. So, but
It'll
everything
happen
else is like
eventually.
the same. It will.
Yeah.
It'll happen like soon. And like once it shows up, it just keeps going. But
Yeah.
just getting to that point.
Yeah. Well, cool. Awesome. Yeah, it'll be cool to see how things change as you, because it's been a couple years since you've been super lean. So you put in a lot, a lot of work between in the last couple of years. So it'd be cool to see how things start shaping up a little bit differently this
Thankfully,
time.
it didn't get too heavy. Like I didn't put on a lot of fat, but it's still enough to where everything's soft. You're not seeing definition or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how much fat they carry most of the time. Like there's a lot to peel off. Like I look pretty good, I would say, but for me to get like shredded would like that's like an 8-month thing to be if I was aggressive. Like I wouldn't be a 12-week prep away. It'd be basically impossible. I'd probably 40 pounds away from being shredded. Like people don't realize that just because you have a couple veins on your biceps, like it and like I've got the turtle shell abs. There's still fat in all sorts of places that needs to go away. Yeah. And like a healthy body fat is nowhere near stage lean.
No, and it's the weight. It's really the weight. When people go, I think I'm this body fat percentage. A lot of times it's hard to estimate. So, and because people are so individual, they show differently. It just depends. You'd have to see them front, side, back, legs, everything to see where they're carrying fat. And a lot of times, like me, I show really well on the front, but on the back, I carry so much fat, and it's so much. And somebody looks at that and they go, well, if you're 15 or 16% body fat, you're 15 pounds away from being stage lean. Try 30. Try 30 pounds, maybe 40.
Well, especially for a man. If you're going to be 200 pounds on stage, 10% is 20 pounds.
Yeah, it's a ton of weight. So that's definitely there's some misestimation there for sure.
Yeah, I think people too, like when you're very, very overweight, like a guy that's 300 pounds, it shows fast because like you lose inches off your waist fast when you just go down to like guys that size, they can eat 2,500 calories and they'll lose several pounds a week sometimes with just moderate exercise. And so the needle moves faster the bigger you are. But when you start getting into more healthier body weight levels, like we are, if you want to go down from that, the deficit has to be significant. And the changes are more subtle and they're slower. Like you're not going to lose inches off your waist in a month. It doesn't work that way. It works that way for someone who's really large. But if you're not huge to start with, if you didn't start in the like 20% plus body fat or something, it does take a lot more to move that needle, more than a lot of people think. And you don't get to see day-to-day changes, I don't think, until like the very end. Because that's when you're like reducing millimeters and you only have a handful of millimeters to go. That's when you start seeing day-to-day changes. But like you just don't see in that middle range of like healthy body fat levels, you don't see much change over time. You can do a whole cut, and it's like, your clothes fit different. If you measure with a measuring tape, you'll see that, I lost an inch off of here, whatever. You're not going to look very different though. You're really not. And that shouldn't be discouraging. It's just, that's the reality. And so if you want to go on that journey, accept it for what it is. But like losing an inch off your waist with a 40-inch waist doesn't change the way you look, like very much. But if you have like a 50-inch waist and you lose an inch, it actually shows a bit more and it changes the way your clothes fit very drastically.
Yeah, absolutely. And because you're losing inches elsewhere too simultaneously.
Yeah, you are.
I think the problem is like guys see fuzzy abs and they think, oh my gosh, I'm almost below 10%. It's like, you're not even close.
Yeah.
You're not even close.
Yeah. I'm guessing that I'm something like 15 or 14, something like that, maybe. But to actually get stage lean, like I'd have to be 7% or whatever. Good grief. That's 30 pounds, maybe more.
Yeah.
Like, especially before weigh-ins, you'd have to be someone like me would have to be probably down 30 something, maybe 40 pounds from where I am before I carb back up.
Yeah. Even to get from 15 to 10% is an act of Congress.
Yeah,
Probably
it's tough. Yeah.
2 to 3 cuts to do it. I mean, it just takes
Right.
so long,
Yeah.
It does.
So,
Which is that what you're doing, Amanda? Are you going to take a break for holidays and then jump back in?
Yeah, I'm trying
Yeah.
to get down to, I think I'm right around 124 right now. So trying to get around 115 or so, give or take a pound or two by the holidays. I want to shoot for a little less than that. Last stage weight was 104. So I want to be kind of within a good range so I could maintain over the holidays and then hit a real prep starting at the beginning of the year.
Should we
Now,
take
Amanda,
bets
are
now
you
on
gonna-
what your new stage weight's going to be?
I don't know what my new stage weight. I would actually kind of expect to be a little heavier
Yeah.
than last time.
I think so.
You better be.
So, yeah.
You've been working for 2 years.
Well, I came in lower on my last show than I had the show before. Even though I had
wasn't your
added more
conditioning
muscle, I
better?
just got a lot leaner. Yeah.
Yeah, because your conditioning
got a
I
lot
thought was
leaner.
way better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you're plus 5 pounds muscle mass.
I was
at
going to say
least.
110,
Probably.
111.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually curious what it's going to look like when I get down because I'm aiming for 115-ish around the holidays. I'm really interested to see what that's going to look like because that's going to maybe change kind of where we're aiming. Not that I'm aiming for a specific weight, but just to have a ballpark.
Amanda, you need to make sure before you do anything that you optimize your female hormones. How are you going to do that?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. That's a good segue, though.
That was a good segue.
By the way, dieting at Amanda's body fat levels, which are already plenty lean, is not a good way to optimize your hormones.
That's right. It's the opposite of doing that. Yes.
But let's
actually
do Emily
starting in a
first,
good
and then
spot.
then we'll get into it because we haven't done her yet. So you just started a new training block with some different goals. Maybe talk about that for a minute before we satisfy the audience with what we just tantalized them.
Right. I'll go fast. I won't keep them waiting. I just started a new training block today. It's going to be 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which we're recording on Tuesday. We're not going to start that for a couple weeks until our nice little nerve over here is all healed up when Justin. But it's going to be lower body, upper body, lower body, and back for the third day. The goal for all the way through the holidays is to have fun and train a little heavier. So I have some movements in there that I have not actually trained before. I've got push press. I'm bringing some heavier deadlifts back. I'm doing farmer carries, which I've never done before. So it's something to push me a little bit and also make it a little bit more fun. All the way through January. So I'm looking forward to that. It beat my legs today. So
I'm sure.
I had some good
That sounds
jello
really
legs.
fun to go through.
Yeah.
You haven't trained legs heavy
I
with
have
heavy
not.
weights in 3 years.
Yeah,
at
probably
least?
about 3 years.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. And another experiment I'm doing through the next several months is I'm going to push my protein up. I've never really pushed it. I've usually, on a normal day for me, I hit between 120 and 140. So that's been my normal. I would like to get it up to 200. I'm at 150 right now. Been at 150 for like a week, and I'm trying to increase it up to 200 and stay there for a while and just see. I've never done it before. So
All you skinny guys complaining about how hard it is to eat protein.
Yeah.
My wife is 5'2" and she's going to eat 200 grams of protein a day, which is what you should be eating too. I don't want to hear it.
I don't think I've ever gone that high, but I am high.
I haven't either.
That's gonna be
so
fun.
That's kind of why I want to try it. Just
There
try
is
it out.
there is some evidence. There's some studies that have shown that like overloading
Really?
protein, as long as you're training hard, you have to train hard for it. Does seem to be effective. I've
Very
taken
beneficial.
protein to 350 for a couple months at a time. It is kind of miserable.
Yeah.
But I did do it a couple of times, and that was some of the more significant growth I experienced was during those times. So it can work.
Yeah, so I'll let you guys know.
Yeah, I'm at like 250, and I'm eating. I've actually been losing a little bit of weight, which I didn't want to do, but it's happening, and I'm like, okay, fine. I just want to get back to my previous strength, so I don't really care about.
Are you
weight right
adjusting carbs and fats because of the protein going that high?
Yeah, right now I am because I'm still working into like a true maintenance calories coming off the diet. So I've only been off for about a month. So I'll be there in the next few weeks, but yeah, I'm kind of trying to titrate accordingly, and then I'll just keep an eye on measurements and weight, and kind of see what I can get away with. And
I suspect your calories will be able to go higher than usual when you're
so
adding. I suspect that you
for
can eat
sure.
pretty much the same fats and carbs
between the training and like thermocorrective protein.
When you train hard,
so we'll see what
protein
happens.
is basically free in excess to a certain point, but very few people hit it, in my opinion. It's if you're one of those people, good for you, but I've never seen it.
So that'll be interesting too. See where my macros end up.
Yeah, cool. Let's talk about our topic today. So, there's a lot of junk out there, obviously, on this topic. We want to try to make it concise and clear and offer hope for people, for women in particular, that feel like they're broken. A lot of women think that they're broken. They think that their hormones are messed up, and because my hormones are messed up, I am this for life. I'm going to have this limitation for life. The reality that we have seen as coaches, and that honestly a lot of hormone specialists see and others would confirm, women actually have more hope than men in the area of just hormones in general. Men tend to get broken and kind of stay broken, or at least mostly broken at a certain point, depending on your age and there's other factors and what broke you. But for women respond really well to the right environment. If the environmental inputs are correct, then women can change drastically. They have this ability actually far more than men. Women are way more adaptable to their environment. This leads to positive and negative outcomes, of course. So right now, there's just this obsession on social media with talking about hormones. A lot of ways that women are trying to manipulate their hormones are just junk. All of the like teas and berry drinks and pills and other things like that, and like extracts of this and oils, all that stuff. I took this and it fixed my look. Every woman I've heard say, I started taking, you name whatever supplement. I mean, I've seen women claim that taking lion's mane fixed her hormones. One, you never got a complete hormone panel. Two, I'm sure if you did, nobody competent examined it. Three, you don't even know what time of the month you got it relative to your cycle. So it makes it even more useless. So like, I want people to be careful about claiming that their hormones, one, don't make that claim when it's when you don't know. And two, when you do make the claim, like, don't think it's a limiting factor. It's a snapshot of here and now. It doesn't mean that you're stuck there. Again, especially as a woman, women, they just recover really well. So there are certain factors that we've observed that are very important to women's hormones that actually do wreck them, that generally have to be overcome or eliminated in order to get to right the ship, if you will. Amanda, I know you have some experience with this. You want to kind of talk through some of those factors that you've kind of seen, experienced yourself, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, birth control is a big one. People getting on birth control, like there is something to the fact that our hormones are messed up, like you're saying. But we need to know what those sources are and how to fix it. So birth control, for one, has really been a huge one, especially women in my generation. Where you're on it at such a young age, like early teens are getting on this and staying on it off and on through their 30s. And it's just this constant supply of estrogen that you don't need. And so that's going to throw off, and it does take time to recover from that. It took my body several years, I think, to get back. It probably would have gone faster had I been lifting heavy weights during that time period. But it did take a while to bring that back to regular. So a lot of women will also just assume that their hormones are fine because they're on the pill. Like your blood work's going to be different whenever you're taking a hormone, like period. It's no pun intended, but
No
there's
pun
just
if you have one.
So that there's also, of course, environmental factors, all of the plastics and fragrances and all the things like that are producing forever chemicals in our bodies. Some of that's irreversible, but you can really do so much to counteract that.
I think some of that's overstated. That's just my opinion there. I do think it's real, but I think that of all the factors we're going to talk about, that's the smallest one for most people, unless you've been exposed to pesticides in your water supply. Like there are certain things, but like, drinking from plastic cups and whatever else, drinking city water, I think in most cases is not, it's probably the least of all the factors we're going to discuss today, in my opinion.
I think in general, it seems like the more healthy you are overall, the better you are at getting rid of those things that you're encountering.
Yes.
So it's not that you shouldn't be careful, but still overall health is going to outweigh the whatever you're encountering in the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important you mention it is probably the smaller of the factors here, especially because there are a lot of women who will go switch out all their plastic for glass and they're still never setting a foot outside. So like which one of those two options is going to be more effective or more helpful for you in the long run?
Yeah.
So there are some environmental factors just based on like where you live that can be part of this. Not many of us live on a golf course, but like people who live near a golf course, for example, have higher rates of hormonal disruption and even cancers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just all the stuff they put to keep that grass looking like it's fake is terrible for you. But that's really not a lot of us.
I've learned: don't live near an airport. Don't live near a golf course. Yeah. I mean, you can live near a golf course. Just make sure like at least a few houses separated. I'd want to be more, but don't have one of those where like your backyard opens up to a golf course. Like it might be a great view and you might love it. You're probably not going to live as long.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of women will blame energy on like, my hormones are making me tired all the time. Meanwhile, they're doom scrolling until 1 a.m. with a bag of Cheetos. Like, it's just identifying what's really the factor here. Are your hormones off? Probably, maybe. Yeah. But your labs are just a snapshot and they're not telling you everything about
and frankly, even if you had good hormones and you're behaving that way, you're not going to feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. That's the other thing. The serum levels of hormones, particularly sex hormones, is almost meaningless. Especially in terms of E2, right? Which is really what we're talking about. Yeah. As far as estrogen for women, that's what all the therapies are, right? That and progestin, right? Which is a progesterone substitute, and estrogen in aromatizing either from testosterone in men or either budding genetically and naturally from women in the tissues is what makes the most difference in regards to recovery. And when you say tissues, people think, well, that's muscles. Well, no, it means all types of muscle. It means skeletal muscle, but it also means smooth muscle, which is all your organs, right? And your organs need estrogen to function and to repair properly. Your body's diurnal cycle happens when you sleep. The estrogen goes to repair then. It's actually a really crazy process. If you knew what your body did while you were sleeping, it would terrify you. It does all kinds of things.
There's good evidence, actually. That's why women can train harder than men. It's not just a proportionate thing to like, they tend to be weaker. Yeah. I don't think it's that way. I think it's actually estrogen, which is also why women tend to have higher IGF-1 levels. It's estrogen. Estrogen allows women to take on more volume and they can recover from heavier training than men. And it's because of having so much estrogen and it's active in so many tissues.
Right. When you think about estrogen as a hormone that promotes cell division, right? That's really what it does. Mm-hmm. That's really the factor. And then women, of course, don't have all the negative effects of elevated prolactin that men feel, right? Mm-hmm. And so women can have elevated prolactin, and that's fine. You're not really going to, most women wouldn't even know if they had elevated prolactin. It
has to be really, really high. And that's like high. Pregnancy, nursing levels.
Yeah. But however, for men, it can affect that system, and it really is disruptive. And so there's a lot of things to consider there. But one of them is that your serum levels, like Coach Amanda is saying, is a snapshot, but it's also in some cases next to pointless, right? In telling you what's going on in your body, because your serum levels can be perfect and you're still going to be symptomatic. We see that all the time, women and men.
Yeah, particularly estrogen, actually.
Yeah,
a lot of women actually have pretty good estrogen levels, in my experience.
Yeah,
yeah. That's the balance between the actual numbers and the symptoms. It's so much going on, and we've talked about this in previous episodes about testosterone in men. Like, you might be low and not really have any symptoms. You might have higher, on the range testosterone and have some symptoms of low testosterone. So it's a both and kind of thing.
Yeah. Symptoms, I mean, this is where it's all going to go, obviously. Symptoms drive how we help people.
Right.
And that extends to hormones, obviously. But that, again, like what we said before, if you have a lifestyle that doesn't promote your well-being, you can have great hormone levels. You're still going to be miserable.
Right.
Like all the same things you should be doing, whether you have good hormones or bad hormones, they're all the same, one way or the other. And that's going to be a common thread here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's good to point that out in regards to nutrition as well. When we think about that, we talked about estrogen in the tissues, but here's the reality. If you don't have glycogen, right, in your system, guess what's not going to happen even if you have estrogen in the tissues? They're not going to repair properly. That's just not how the body works. So you've got to have a balance of glycogen. You've got to have nitrogen. You've got to have essential amino acids. You've got to have the estrogen. You've got to have everything in place, or else nothing works. And so that's why you can't really play by the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do want to point out too that a lot of women that think that they have issues, it's often from a doctor saying, "Oh, your hormones are off."
Right.
And and then the next piece of advice about what to do about it is honestly often terrible. But either way, it's not because your hormones are off. Your hormones are off because you don't have certain lifestyle things in order. It's often stated backwards. And frankly, it's because it's hard to sell fitness and it's easy to sell drugs.
Yeah.
And by the way, another factor too that I guess we could mention is that we see often are antidepressants. Any type of antidepressant is pretty much going to mess with your hormone levels along with like it is a hormone that you're taking. And so that hormone itself is disruptive and will, have generally deleterious effects. And studies have demonstrated over and over again, eating right, sleeping, training are far more effective at helping your mental state than any type of SSRI or other antidepressant that's ever been invented. And I think that's always going to be the case for people. You're ultimately masking a problem with a drug, which, as offensive as it might be, I'll put out there as drug abuse. That's what all substance abuse really comes down to, is trying to change and hide and disassociate from your environment, from your life and circumstances that might be in your life that you don't want to deal with a drug. Yeah. Sometimes you do need drugs for certain things, but typically depression isn't one of them. It might give you an edge to get out of the hole for a while, but it should not be this thing where, oh, I'm going to be on this for life because it's going to make me better. It's not going to make you better. It's going to kill you. It's just going to kill you differently.
Short-term half-life drugs are being shown now to have effects that are so beyond what something like an SSRI or an antidepressant can do. It's almost laughable to even think about treating people with that. I think there's going to be a point in history where we look back and we go, that's brutal what you used to do to people. You would have them ingest these inhibitors that would give them things like borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, psychogenic psychosis, and all these problems that can become major issues permanently, right? If you're in that hole long enough, when you could have just sent them somewhere to get very low dose ketamine for 8 weeks and they are out of the hole. And I mean, cured like 80 to 90% of the time, right?
Particularly if you do lifestyle intervention at the same time, because it can give you that boost to get you over the hill. So it's like, all right, now we can get some momentum going here. We have some good habits built. You don't need the drugs anymore to help you get through, whatever the thing might be that's holding you back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it should be used as a training wheels for you to get better, not a crutch that you lean on for life. Because again, if you do, that crutch is going to kill you. It's just killing you differently than you would be without it. And most of the time that this information is put out there, again, it's by people that haven't checked their hormones. Doctors will say this all the time without checking hormones. And frankly, most doctors aren't trained in how to read hormone panels. They don't know really what they're looking at. They go, oh, it's in the range. You must be fine. Reading hormone panels can be very nuanced. And like when I read a woman's hormone panels or a man's, women's are more complicated and it's more contextual. I never just tell a woman oh, you're this or you're that, because I have a bunch of questions first before I say anything of okay, when exactly was this in your cycle? This is this. What have you been eating? What was your sleep like? There's a whole bunch of things to contextualize it because we're trying to also treat symptoms. And so you have to contextualize the hormones in light of the symptoms, in light of the time that they were drawn, because it is a snapshot in time. Women's hormones change fast, very regularly. They're not like men's hormones. And so like you might have the symptoms of poor hormones. That doesn't mean you have poor hormones. My name is Justin Johnson with High Calling Fitness. Maybe you're tired, gaining weight, waking up with joint pain, back pain, and a body that just doesn't feel like it used to. You've tried to fix it, but nothing seems to last. What if you don't need another app or crash diet, but a real coach, someone to meet you where you're at and walk with you step by step? At High Calling Fitness, our coaching comes to you wherever you are. No matter where you live, small town or city, across the country or across the world, your health still matters. You don't have to go it alone. We build personalized plans based on your goals, your schedule, and your equipment, even if it's just a set of dumbbells in a small space. This isn't just training, it's a personal partnership. You'll get weekly updates, one-on-one access to your coach, and ongoing support through Zoom and Slack every step of the way. We're here to help you build strength, restore energy, and claim the life you were meant to live. Book a free consult today. Let's talk about your goals and see how we can build something better together. High Calling Fitness, built for the everyday, ready for the extraordinary. The symptoms of poor hormones are the same as not eating right. Not eating right can lead to bad hormones, but you can have a great hormone panel and just feel terrible all day. And so we encourage anyone listening to this, don't diagnose from social media or from like infographics you see or anything like that. I've seen things like 5 signs of estrogen dominance and stuff like that, which, by the way, estrogen dominance is not a real medical term. It's something that was invented fairly recently, and it's not descriptive of what's actually happening.
No.
It's not tied to any sort of real pathology that's been recognized or anything like that. It's sort of a made-up buzzword term. I've even seen doctors start using the term. I think it's mostly to chase social media clout. Yep. But it's not really a real thing. Yeah, you might have high estrogen in comparison to the other hormones, but what does that mean? Well, honestly, not that much. It's like the next question should be, what's your lifestyle like?
Yeah.
It's
and
a
your
series.
Symptoms.
Yeah, it's what are your symptoms, what's your lifestyle like? We'll treat that with lifestyle, but we don't hormones indicate something that's going on under the hood, particularly in women, that is usually very fixable.
Yeah.
And so go ahead.
Well, and to go back to the doctors not knowing how to read hormone panels, you have a consensus in modern medicine, allopathic medicine, that when a woman has breast cancer and they remove all tissue from the chest, they then give them estrogen blockers at very high doses for long periods of time and wonder why they gain weight, they get joint problems, they have subluxation in their spinal column, and they have all these issues. There's no tissue for that to occur in anymore. They have removed the tissue that was at risk. It is no longer there. There is no sense in giving that person an estrogen blocker. It is just absolutely poisonous to their body, and it doesn't make sense in that case. But it is a consensus, right, in allopathic medicine. And so that's not to say that, don't listen to your oncologist if you have cancer. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that oncologists are not hormone doctors, right? Just like an MD is not a hormone doctor, right?
Yeah.
And so they can make recommendations based on consensus that may not fit your profile correctly. If you were successfully treated with chemotherapy for breast cancer, then there may be a case for estrogen inhibition at a small rate for you in the future because you have tissues that are at risk. But when all tissue has been removed, that risk is gone, at least in that local area of pathology, right?
So we want to talk. Let's talk a little bit about some of what we can do and what we usually see that does work and what doesn't work. Obviously, we touched on our already lifestyle choices, sleep, diet, training. They matter far more than anything else. Get your sleep, get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, or maybe more. You might be someone that needs more. Some people actually need less, but start with 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. Make sure your sleep hygiene's on point. Make sure your diet's taken care of. And we just did an episode on high fat diets. When we say diet, we're not talking about a high fat diet. We've made other episodes on that, so we don't want to go into that, but that is usually going to look like a high protein, low fat diet that has carbs that are going to be high enough for you to maintain, lose, or gain weight. Carbs are what we use to manipulate weight up, down, or maintain. Okay, 2 servings of fruits, 2 servings of vegetables. Don't overcomplicate this. Eat your breakfast. This is especially important for women. Eat protein for breakfast. Prioritize that. Get protein with every meal. You don't have to overcomplicate this if you're not an athlete. It doesn't have to be much more than that. And the a lot of it's often stated that women can't lose weight because of their hormones. Look, if you're in if you're in a concentration camp and you weren't being fed,
You'd lose
weight. Trust me, it's a caloric deficit. The human body does not create energy ex nihilo. That's for God. Humans don't do that. It might be more difficult for you. And that's a combination of 2 factors from my experience. It is physiological that, yes, your body composition will be different based on your hormones. If you have messed up hormones, it's harder for you to have as much muscle mass, and it's harder for you to keep fat off with certain types of hormone profiles. That is absolutely true. I think your scale weight remains to be actually fairly similar for the caloric input. It's more of a composition change. But the biggest issue is going to be psychological. If you don't feel well, it's hard to not turn to food for comfort, especially when a lot of us have been programmed to do that basically from birth and from the world around us. And because we have so many foods that are literally marketed to us to make us feel better. If you look at food marketing, especially fast food marketing and all snack food marketing, it's not because it tastes good. That's not really why it's marketed. It's marketed to make you feel good, and it may in the moment. So you have to overcome all of that cultural context and all that messaging and basically trillions of dollars probably in marketing to move past this. But if you feel like junk, you're going to be more tempted. It's harder to have resilience. It's harder to have discipline when you have a mind that's depressed and that's struggling mentally.
Right.
And so it's really that it's more of a compliance issue coming in from the back end. It's not your hormones are messed up, I'm going to get fat. It's your hormones are messed up. It's harder to lose weight mentally.
Right.
That's really what I see in most cases. It's just hard. And I'm not trying to downplay it. It is a genuine thing you have to overcome, but it should give people hope that it's not a physiological limitation. This is a mental game, and it's hard and challenging. And it's actually kind of harder than if it was just a physiological problem. But at least if you know what the real source is, what the real problem is, now you have the power to address it. But if you think that it's the hormones making you fat, that's not what's happening. So to make progress, you have to know what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Supplements, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the hormones that they're talking about typically don't work that way.
I was going to say, it's not sex hormones.
My thyroid doesn't function, for example. Now I'm a male, but still my mother, my sister, right, everybody in my family doesn't have a functioning thyroid. So hooray for genetics.
Yeah.
But they don't have any issue with typical weight loss because of it, right? And that's because your T4 and your T3 they are definitely metabolic factors and the primary metabolic drivers of the body. However, they're the primary metabolic drivers of main function of the body. So all the calories that your brain burns by just, being a brain, your heart, your stomach, your intestines, all those things that you burn just by being alive. That's mostly what your T4 and T3 is, your baseline metabolism. All other extraneous metabolism is done by other metabolites in the body. And so you're thinking about things like insulin, right? And you're thinking about stuff like that makes actual physical changes to cells in the body whenever they're fed. And of course, the cytokinetic stuff coming from your liver, your kidneys, your pancreas, all those things. Those are metabolites that actually control your body composition, your fat ratios, your weight loss. Yeah. And they're far more powerful and they're produced in smaller amounts for that reason. Yeah. But you see it all the time. I will see women prescribe things like phentermine, right? Which is a powerful stimulant, right? Which can help with fat loss in the way that a stimulant makes you sick and makes you not want to eat. However, I've also seen women prescribed very high doses of Cytomel, upwards of somewhere like 15 a day. And by the way, Cytomel is so powerful that the highest prescription you can get is 25, and that is almost deadly for any normal human being. It will give you heart failure. But here's the deal: they'll take little 5 tabs 3 times a day, and guess what? They don't lose any more weight. They don't lose any more fat. The only thing they get is a raised heart rate, a bunch of anxiety. They're even more tired. They get even more depressed.
Which typically results in more eating.
More eating, exactly. And
especially now, if you did that to someone who was skinny, they would probably get skinnier.
Right.
Because this is someone that probably doesn't turn to food for comfort. But if you give something to someone that's going to make them have a lower quality mental state, shall we say, that is already overweight and that has that practice, they're probably going to compensate for it with food, especially without the right support system in place.
Yeah. And so it's important to know that when people go, my hormones are messed up, one of the first questions that we ask as coaches probably is, which hormones? And we're not being facetious, but it really is a serious question because you probably don't even know. Somebody just said, hey, your hormones are messed up. Yeah, which hormones and how and what do they affect? Because probably it's not even hormones that affect your body fat levels or anything of the sort, No. So just some food for thought there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually remember reading a study years ago. I can't cite off the top of my head about it was a group of women that were all hypothyroid, and they gave them thyroid replacement and get them to basically normal levels in their labs, and they found that they did recomposition a little bit, and it accounted for about 7 pounds of the excess weight that they had. And I still, again, suspect that they just felt better. Probably. And we're eating less because you can't. It's like they didn't eat controlled diets. That's just what happened, basically.
Right. Well, and I would say too, I had some recent pushback about this, but there are tens of thousands, and when I say tens of thousands, I got a quote from somebody that said it's probably only a couple hundred and a bunch of analyses, but they're wrong. There are tens of thousands of studies the world over with controlled dietary restriction, where people reliably lose weight if they are on a controlled diet given to them by someone else, right?
It has worked every time.
Oh, and I mean just every single time. And study sizes from 10 people to 100,000. I mean, it is just a massive quantity of a body of evidence, right? And so we know that that's not the issue. But if a person, for example, is going, I'm not losing weight on 1,500 calories and I think it's my hormones, they're probably right, but not in the way that they think. Their hormones are probably disrupted in a way that's put them in a mental state that doesn't allow them to properly see the extra 20% of the time that they're snacking and putting extra food in their mouth because they're feeling a certain way, or that they're lying down and not doing much during the day because they find it hard to get out of bed, right, because of their mental state.
And not all, frankly, not all women burn 1,500 calories a day. If you're a short woman that's sedentary, 1,500 calories is probably weight gain for you, especially if you don't have any muscle mass because you don't train or anything. Right. Like a lot of people see the 2,000 calorie average thing or whatever. That's across the whole population. It's probably honestly a little bit on the generous side. And that includes everybody, including athletes and people that have jobs that keep them moving all the time. And that's across men and women. Women on average need a lot less calories. So don't go off that average. It's basically entirely useless to you. The 4 of us on this call, we have wildly varying caloric requirements for maintenance. That's the way it is because we carry different amounts of muscle mass and our activity levels. That's about it, by the way. It's really our size and how much muscle mass we're carrying that's the most relevant. And one thing we want to point out too, supplements aren't magic. I mean, there's a lot of supplements out there that are intended to help you. I think that some of them do. I mean, I've helped clients use some of them. They can be used properly, but they're not a silver bullet, especially GLP-1 agonists. They don't make you lose weight just independently necessarily. They can help you lose weight.
Right. And let me just speak to that as well for a moment. So the GLP-1 agonist issue, right, is really one of stomach function in general. And so what you're really looking for is something like, maybe a GLP-1 and a GIP, something like a tirzepatide. That's going to help you start to turn the corner in low doses, or like a retatrutide, something that's got a glucagon agonist in it as well, because it's not just making you sick and stopping you from wanting to eat. Instead, what it's doing is it's turning down your your impulsivity, right? Like it's making you less impulsive. And it turns out you don't need a ton, right? When something is well put together, you really don't need a lot of that. And so,
not in most cases. Yeah.
no. And what I would say is in women, they actually have a distinct advantage in that ghrelin and leptin are typically controlled much more easily in women. In men, it is actually the ghrelin and leptin metabolic and syndrome in that sense can get way out of control. In women, it's far less. It is far less common. And in fact, and you can know that because even when women overeat, they tend to gain less weight overall than men in the same situation, right? Even though they have less calorie needs, right? For the most part, from a basal metabolic rate perspective, when a woman eats 4,000 calories a day and a man eats 4,000 calories a day, the fat deposits that deposit on a man's body by percentages are much higher, right, than in women.
Men tend to be faster in that respect. They can typically put on weight faster and lose weight faster. And one thing too about the GLP-1 agonists, they're the same thing. It's training wheels. When you come off and you don't have that assistance anymore, if you haven't been building good, healthy habits around diet and exercise, it's going to be very difficult for you to develop new habits coming off. That should look like training wheels. Capitalize on those training wheels while you have them to build habits so that when they're removed, you can continue moving along with a healthy lifestyle. And a lot of the muscle mass loss that we see in people reporting bone mineral density loss and all the other stuff, that is from not training and not eating properly, because a lot of people get on these in the minute amounts of food to achieve weight loss is usually not nutritious food, and their muscles are not getting the stimulation that's needed. And so your body's just going to catabolize everything. If your muscles aren't being utilized, you're going to lose strength. You're going to lose muscle mass. And that is one of the most protective. It's probably the most protective organ you have in your body as it pertains to your health and longevity, your metabolic health, and everything else. So like these things are meant to be force multipliers, and they're meant to be used short term for the purpose of getting you to where you need to go and making it easier to comply with a healthy lifestyle that you'll need to continue if you want to be healthy when you come off. And taking them for life is just generally not a great idea. And I kind of am at a point where I think of all the GLP-1 agonists and that whole family of drugs as basically like a drug substitute for like a belly band. Basically, it's making it harder for you to eat as much.
That's what it is.
That's mostly what it is. You don't have surgery.
Right. The reason that something like a GLP-3 is what they would call it, right? Mm-hmm. But something like retatrutide, the reason that shows much more promise is because it's not just preventing you from eating. It's actually helping balance the lipids in your system. You actually lower your cholesterol naturally that way because your liver dumps lipids. It also allows you to eat more dietary cholesterol without the negative effects, which some people could use in some cases, right? Especially women. And not that we're advocating high fat, but what I mean is you can put some healthy cholesterol back into your body, things like eggs and steaks and burgers and things like this that make sense for that, or healthy cheeses or milk. And so some of that helps by helping you balance your cravings. Use that time, like Justin's talking about, to develop a palate for other stuff. If you're not craving the junk, don't eat it. Eat something else and get in those habits of that. Now, the other thing is for competitors, and I know, Amanda, you know this, if you're going into a stated natural competition, one that is a tested league and they're stated to be natural, they will not allow you to use GLP-1, GLP-2, GLP-3 for weight loss only. It's only if you have a prescription for it for diabetic control, and then your doses are going to be much lower than people use for weight loss. Just a word of warning there.
Yeah. So, Emily, do you want to kind of talk through some of the timing as far as the phases, women's phases, and what to expect if they're to pull blood work during that time to contextualize, kind of like what's up, what's down, and that sort of thing?
Right. Yeah. I mean, to go through, menstrual cycle in a couple minutes sort of thing, day one, all your levels are going to be flat or almost flat. Your estrogen, your testosterone, your progesterone, you're bottomed out, which I was thinking about this earlier today. It's indicative of how little we know about this as women, because typically we blame the feel bad of the menstrual cycle on hormones are all over the place. It's like, no, you actually have zero, and that's why you feel bad.
Yeah, they're at their lowest baseline.
They're at your
basically.
lowest point, but that's just such a talking point as women. But when you're on your cycle, especially the first day is when they're the lowest, and then as you come off of it, your estrogen's starting to rise. We're not going to really talk about FSH and LH and those types of things, but your estrogen's starting to rise in particular, and your estrogen rises, it peaks just before ovulation. That's what causes you to ovulate, to release the egg. And then it takes a little dip and then comes back up, not as quite as high in the second half of your cycle. Your testosterone remains mostly the same, except you get a little bump right around ovulation. That's baby making time. So you get that nice little bump of testosterone because your body wants to be pregnant. And then your progesterone is like not zero, but practically zero in the first half of your cycle. Mm-hmm. You really don't need it, and your body doesn't make it naturally in the first half of your cycle. It comes after ovulation, and it comes to help the lining of your uterus prepare for pregnancy. And it comes from the corpus luteum, which is actually where that egg came from the follicle. It reforms and also produces progesterone, as well as some other parts of your body. And so you don't even have much progesterone in the first half of your cycle. Your testosterone should be pretty much the same, except a little higher near ovulation. And your estrogen, especially if you get blood work done right around ovulation, it could be sky high just for around 24 hours. But it's going to be rising that entire time up to ovulation, then take a little dip and then rise again, but not as high. Up until the time right before you start bleeding, where your progesterone drops off and your estrogen drops off again. And so depending on where you get blood work done in your cycle is going to matter hugely. Yeah. So if you get labs done on day 18 or day 3 or day 14 or whatever, and depending on who you are and when you ovulate and how long your cycles are, it's extremely context dependent of what those serum levels if even mean. And like Bill and Amanda said earlier, even in the entire context of your cycle and lifestyle with those serum levels, you still have to take into account that it's not the whole story because of all of the hormones in your tissues as well. So if you want to get blood work done, we do this with people all the time because it does tell us certain things, but you have to be very aware of what day you got that done and what time of day and what your lifestyle was like when you got it done, just to give everything the whole picture and get the full context. And that is different for even each woman because the levels, even for each woman, are a little bit different. I tend to have slightly lower estrogen levels than average, but I feel really good at those levels. I have no low estrogen symptoms. When I've heard of other women who might be 100 higher at the same time of the month, but they feel good. They have no lower high estrogen symptoms. And so it is, even within that range, fairly individual.
It is. And one thing that complicates this further is if you have any sort of irregularity to your cycle, then it becomes a lot harder to pinpoint where you are in your cycle. And so it all has to be taken into context, because day 13 for some women is not day 13 for other women. And so if you're really regular, it does make this a lot easier. But if you have any degree of irregularity, then it does kind of throw things off. And so that, like Emily said, you have to interpret it with a lot of context. And this does simplify things in some ways, though. We still look to treat symptoms. We don't look to hormones as this end all be all. Symptoms are what are the most important thing that we train for, we make adjustments for. We don't make adjustments for hormones so much. And even in hormone replacement context with a doctor or something like that, there's still a good one will still be looking at symptoms, because certain lab ranges, some people will feel wildly different. I've talked to men that feel like they're overstimulated on 500 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone. For me, 500 is nothing. That's not even serious symptom relief as far as TRT goes. I need double that to feel good. And I feel way better on triple that. And that's what I'm prescribed. So there are wild variations for certain people on where they're going to feel good, and that is just as true of exogenous as it is of endogenous hormones. So let's talk a little through. So Bill, I'd like you to talk through estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, what it does in women, which, by the way, especially estrogen and testosterone, they do sometimes opposite things in men than they do for women. So do not apply any of what you're about to hear to men, because sometimes it is actually opposites. This is just for the ladies.
Yeah. So let's start with the typical female sex hormones that we hear about, right? Which is estrogen and progesterone. So estrogen is it's basically it's a receptor. It's a receptor that it's a receptor either inhibitor or advancer, right? That causes cellular division, helps that happen in a tissue. And that happens a lot of different ways, right? So it happens in muscular tissue in the sense of advancing muscular recovery and development in the body, as well as muscle maintenance in the body. It also plays a role in clearing inflammation, because it is sort of what comes to the rescue there, right? When things need to be healed partially. Same thing in your organs. But essentially, its primary job is to basically cause this hormone. Well, it's a combination of hormones that come together, but it's sort of the primary catalyst for that combination of hormones to cause cellular division in a tissue. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can think of it that way. So for women, that's essentially how they develop, right? It's primarily through estrogen. They don't primarily develop through testosterone like men do. As Justin said, this is their primary sex hormone. And so it is what biologically defines them, right? And so when we think of a woman developing sort of gynecologically, right, along the path of puberty and things like that, estrogen is sort of what dominates, right? Now, the secondary hormone, and it is a far second, right, is progesterone. And actually, I would say it's not even the best reliable indicator of what we would call pregnancy health and ovulation and uterine health. Probably the primary indicator is beta HCG levels. I won't go into that right now, but just know that that's more likely to give you a better picture of your uterine health. Progesterone is actually what develops tissues and tissue functions related to pregnancy. So when you think about breast enlargement during pregnancy, progesterone and prolactin are really the things that help cause that. Progesterone is a catalyst for prolactin in the body. And of course, it also helps the mucosal lining of the uterus thicken so that eggs can implant correctly, helps the tissues thicken so that eggs can implant correctly. If you have low progesterone levels, or even major elevated progesterone levels, along with irregular levels of beta HCG, you might see something like a molar pregnancy, where cells grow around an embryo, right? Because progesterone is either too active or it's inactive, depending on how the molar pregnancy plays out. And so that's sort of what those two hormones do in tandem, right? Is you have the developmental hormone of estrogen, and then you have sort of the gynecological development of, and really the obstetric development of a woman, right? So you think about all things related to pregnancy are really related to progesterone. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
can I real quick talk on the estrogen thing too? You like when you mentioned it was a catalyst for many things. Estrogen's the main catalyst for not progesterone, prolactin.
Yeah, it is.
Like that's what like the rise in estrogen creates the further cascade rise in prolactin for milk production. Like estrogen is like it creates a cascade of other events, and that's like what you mentioned before. This is just another example of that. So sorry, go ahead. Please continue with testosterone.
Amazingly, the estrogen is what allows the progesterone to do its job in regards to preparation for pregnancy, and of course going through pregnancy. And so that's absolutely right. Estrogen is critical in that way. It is the developmental hormone for women. Testosterone is interesting in women because really its seeming primary function is to introduce androgenic development, but in the sense that it aromatizes estrogen in the tissues, right? When it's taken exogenously. Endogenous testosterone is fairly low for women, but it sort of controls things like libido, which is funny because we said, hey, sometimes these things do the opposite in men and in women. Well, here's a fun fact. Testosterone does not control your libido. That's apomorphine. That's something that controls your libido as a man. You're just injecting yourself with testosterone will not increase your libido. But if you inject a woman with testosterone, it will absolutely reliably increase their libido, for sure. Right. And so because it serves that function. Why does it do that? Well, because again, the building blocks of a female's development are estrogenic. And so the testosterone is really more of a supplement than anything, right, to some of those other and what we would call androgenic functions like libido in the female body, right? And so that's sort of what testosterone does as a function in the female body. It actually does very little. It can increase androgenic effects in the sense of it can change the shape of a woman's body at very high doses. But that's pretty rare.
That's usually PCOS.
Yeah. Well, so right.
That's you get like belly fat, things like you have the fat forms on the belly like it does in men, things like that.
Right, exactly. And you would have more pronounced shoulders. You would have thicker body hair. In some women, you could see something like clitoral growth or something like that if it's high enough, right? If you have issues like that, but increasing those androgenic sort of properties of the body because it's not really the primary developmental hormone, right? And so in women, it really serves as a subsidiary hormone that helps sort of amplify some androgenic effects in the hormone systems of women. So that's sort of like a primer, right? It's a whole lot more. When we talk about the types of estrogen and things like that, there's like, we're getting into
and the types that become more prevalent change during pregnancy, and it's a very. So what I'd like to recap are the mental effects. That's what we're usually talking about too. So estrogen is going to be, it's in women, but I'm talking about women here, not men. Estrogen is usually going to have a almost stimulating effect, which is why a woman that has really high estrogen, they might feel like overstimulated, almost cranky and irritable. And if they have it too low, they actually might experience like just very low energy levels. They might feel lethargic and that kind of thing. Progesterone, even depression. Yeah. Progesterone is usually like a calming come down. It can actually help. Like sometimes some women actually have been using it for sleep and things like that. You typically has a very calming effect, a very just sort of feel good, but in a kind of a come down sense of feel good. Not like estrogen where it's like stimulating. It's almost a stimulant in women, whereas progesterone would be like the opposite of that, but not in a depressive sense, in a just sort of like calming, feel good type of mood. And testosterone is usually going to have sort of like, it'll increase drive and energy. In this sense, it's somewhat like men. It tends to have an increase in the sense of just general well-being, but without the sort of like calming effect of progesterone. It's just usually more like I'm good, I'm okay, everything will be just fine, and provide a sort of like, almost like a baseline level of energy that the other ones sort of need to complement to feel good for women. But it's sort of like a good sort of baseline of everything's okay, I'm going to be okay. And one of the more important things with testosterone too, this is true of men and women, is conversion to DHT, dihydrotestosterone, which occurs naturally in both sexes. DHT is not really active in muscle tissues, but it is active in the nervous system. It's actually absolutely needed for spinal nervous repair. It's also needed for the brain to feel good. Like if you have no DHT as a woman, you just don't feel as good. You lose your drive. You lose sort of like even willpower can become more difficult. And kind of like Bill was saying, in women, testosterone will drive libido, so the frequency of sexual desire, and estrogen typically will drive the quality of basically anything sex-related, if you will. They do have to work together. It's not like one is independent of the other, but those the primary drivers, and it is opposite.
One thing to know is that medically speaking, you would identify the primary sex hormone in someone by what it does to their DNA in excess. So estrogen, for example, like women tend to respond strongly to high doses of testosterone androgenically, but they do not suffer the DNA effects that men suffer with high testosterone doses. So in men, if you have testosterone that is through the roof with no other hormone management, you're going to have degradation of DNA. and cellular structure destruction over time. Now that can be mitigated with diet and sleep, nutrition, and
Yeah.
and working out,
Sunlight. Yeah.
all that stuff, right? But it's the same. The same effect can be seen in women. It's not seen in them with testosterone. It is seen in them when they take high doses of estrogen. It's the same thing. And so in men, what they would say is that that's sort of the primary correlation between testosterone and a carcinogenic state for that hormone in the body. And it's the same thing to the opposite in women. The higher estrogen levels, right, can be potentially carcinogenic because they are degrading DNA. And so that's a way to identify primary developmental hormones in folks, is that the over introduction of them kind of reduces cellular structure integrity. So, that's another way that they just behave oppositely, right? And that's why you can know that the estrogen is really the driver for development in women.
Yeah, and that's why.
On a quick, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just real quick. This is mine's short.
No, you're good. You're good.
That's part of why high estrogen levels are associated with increase of cancer incidence in women in breast tissue and then in the uterus, because it can excessively drive cellular division and growth in ways that you can have runaway, metabolic disease, basically, which is what cancer ultimately is. It's cells that are too prolific. They're too greedy.
Yeah, I was going to mention real quick, as far as the cycle goes with hormones, many women don't quite understand the days that go along with it. You're not necessarily going to ovulate 14 days into a cycle. Almost always you have ovulated around 14 days before a period. So like when you're irregular, the part that's elongated of that cycle is generally the follicular phase. The luteal phase is almost always going to be the same. Once that cascade of events happens, it's generally going to be 14 days.
It's a countdown to the start, sort of.
Basically. So that's why it's really important to keep track of these cycles, because the point of this entire episode is not to say, well, these are my hormones, and so this is just how I have to live. It's to say, understand them because you can influence them. Like you can actually make a difference here. And when it comes to a cycle and when to start changing habits, like there's two best times to start a habit. The first one is today. It's always going to be today. The second best one is in the first week or two of a new cycle. Your hormones are generally baseline. It's easier to begin a new habit at that point in a cycle. Like if you're wanting to set a date, like this is when I'm going to start this plan and I'm going to go full force, it should be probably like maybe starting day 3, day 5 of a new cycle, because you're going to be pretty baseline. The uncomfortable cramps are going to be pretty much over and you're starting fresh.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's changes in your mental state that it's good to be aware of so that you have the best chance possible. Yeah. So what do we do about all this? We've already kind of more than hinted at it. Train, get your sleep, eat a good diet. Sun exposure is important. We've talked a lot about various morning habits that you should do in the past. And use labs as feedback for whether what you're doing is working, not necessarily as a crutch. And also realize that, like we mentioned before, what you might feel good on does not mean that someone else does. Don't let your lab results placebo you into thinking something's wrong. You might have great labs and it might just be like, okay, that means I'm good. If you have a poor mental state, then there are other things to address about your lifestyle. Sex hormones are downstream of habits typically. And so you want to find out what are those habits that I need to manipulate to do better. This is all going to come down to it's lifestyle. It's what you eat. It's your actual diet. It's not the supplements you put in your body. Don't rely on supplements. There's a lot of MLMs and other things like that trying to sell this stuff to women, and detoxes and other things like that. Those do not work. A lot of women think they work because they'll be told, like, drink this tea while sitting outside in the morning and chug it with the protein. Well, the tea had nothing to do with that. It was the fact that you chug protein and you're outside for 10 minutes because and so they attribute it to the tea, but it's really not. It's kind of like almost useful as a ritual because it got you doing the thing, but just realize that the tea did absolutely nothing and you just happen to be drinking it while you fix the other problems going on in your lifestyle that make you feel better. So you have to step outside that paradigm of thinking that I need to add to my lifestyle in order to add a supplement or something like that. You don't have a berry, whatever kind of berry deficiency. You don't have a tea deficiency. You don't need to drink tea to live. And typically what we're seeing works best is your hormones get right when you lose excessive weight. For women, that's typically any weight that keeps you over about 18, maybe up to 20% body fat. And I think that women actually tend to do better when they were closer to 16%. Seems like a pretty good medium. And then a high protein diet, keep the fats low, keep the carbs, as high as you can based on what your goals are. Get your fruits and vegetables, get outside as early as possible. Preferably upon waking, go look outside, even for 2 minutes. That's all you got to do. And then you can begin to address certain things from there. Look at your water supply, look at the quality of your food, maybe look at what fragrances you're putting on and things you're putting on your skin and lotions and stuff like that. But those should be the last things you change. Don't bother with those things if your diet's not where it should be. If you're not training at least twice a week, if you're not going on walks, if you're not getting outside, if you're not doing that stuff, you can change all the fragrances you want. You can change all the shampoos you want. Yes, that might be good for you, but it's not going to give you the change that you want. The change that you want is in changing what you eat, changing how you sleep, training, getting outside. Those will have far more influence on how you are doing as a person and your health state than any supplement can ever give you. You can't supplement your way out of a bad lifestyle. And we don't want to hear that often because it's harder work. It's difficult to change habits. But the truth of the matter is, you're going to get out of this what you put into it. And if you just put supplements into it, you're not going to get much out of your health journey. If you want to actually affect real change, then build a lifestyle that supports what you want, and then the results will flow from there. And like we often like to say, you will be very disappointed in your short-term results typically, but you'll be wildly blown away by the long-term success of habits and consistency. Consistency trumps all. Showing up and doing a suboptimal plan is way better than occasionally showing up and doing the optimal plan. Make one change at a time. Do it like Amanda said. Do it day 3 to 5 of your cycle, if that makes it easier for you. Implement these changes one at a time if you have to, but make sure you have a path forward to do so. And also recognize that hormone replacement might be an option for you. Talk to a doctor about it. You can talk to us about it. All of us have personal and professional experience with hormone replacement with clients and everything else. It might be that is actually the solution for you, but I would urge anyone listening to this to not consider it a first line of defense. At least try the other stuff first, because you really want to make sure you're addressing your health state. Because if you go on hormone replacement, the things to make you healthy are still the things that make you healthy. It doesn't change because you're taking hormones. Like, a healthy lifestyle is a healthy lifestyle. The right diet to eat when you're on hormone replacement is the same diet to eat when you're not on it. It doesn't change what's best for you to put into your body. So, sort of in conclusion, address those things first. If you want to talk to us about this, we do. We have experience. We do understand them. If you want us to look at your labs or help you get labs, we do one-time consults for people that just want to have us look at things for you and help you out there. We do one-time plans. We also obviously have ongoing private coaching options. You can find this all at the website on highcallingfitness.com. Sit down, have a meeting with us. There's no commitments. You just go on the website, schedule a meeting at a time that works best for you, and we'll just talk to you about what your options might be and see what you might be interested in. But there is hope in all of this. Because your hormones are messed up, which they may or may not be, let's say they are, doesn't mean they have to stay that way. There are a lot of ways to address this, and you're not broken. You just might be a little bit down and out at the moment, but you don't have to stay that way. Staying that way is a choice. You can choose to get out of it, or you can choose to stay and be a victim. The choice is ultimately up to you, and nobody can really make you do otherwise. But if you want to get out of this, then you have hope. The hope is go and fix the lifestyle. Everything else will flow from there. Anybody else have any final words on that?
That's it.
Cool.
Yeah, my just final challenge for anybody, if you are the lady who's constantly scrolling Instagram or getting on WebMD or asking all her friends, trying to find the thing that's wrong with your hormones, I would just challenge you to stop for 60 days. Just stop. Don't look up anything. Get off Instagram and implement some of these things and then see how you feel.
Go make some healthy food.
That's right.
Or scroll your Instagram on a walk in the morning.
I would say just no. Get off.
Go listen to an audiobook or something. Like, do that. Yeah. Cool. Well, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening in. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find us. And until then, gains and grace.
Gains and grace.
Gains and grace.